David Eagleman, in his book Incognito, The Secret Lives of the Brain, wrote, "Instead of reality being passively recorded by the brain, it is actively constructed by it. This construction is our meaning-making ability. The meaning we give events changes the way we respond to them, how we feel about our lives and those around us." In this episode, we discuss how Allah is reframing the events of Musa's life, alayhi salam, from what could be seen as a litany of tragedies to a series of training experiences under his Lord's loving eye. This is Quran Conversations, the podcast for anyone who wishes to unlock the meaning and healing power of the Quran. I'm your host, Dalia Mogahed, an author, researcher, and a student of the Quran. I'll be in conversation with one of my dearest teachers, Imam Muhammad Majid, a scholar of the Quran and longtime family counselor and congregational leader. If you're enjoying this podcast, please review it on your podcasting platform. It helps us more than you know. Quran Conversations is sponsored by Fawakih, an online learning platform for Quranic Arabic, which I myself use. Start your journey in unlocking the language of the Quran. Go to fawakih.org. We hope this podcast also encourages your own reflective journey with the Quran. Make sure to stay until the end to hear this week's reflection prompt. For more spiritual insights, follow me on Instagram at Dalia Mogahed. Without further ado, let's dive into the episode. This week covers ayahs 40 to 41 in Surah Taha. Assalamu alaikum. We're back with another episode of Quran Conversations. How are you, Imam Majid?
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Shukran, Sister Dalia.
So we wanted to go back and finish our discussion on ayah 40. We'll go ahead and read it, and then we will discuss it a little bit more. Imam Majid, would you mind starting by reading this ayah?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إذ تمشي أختك فتقول هل أدلكم على من يكفله فرجعناك إلى أمك كي تقر عينها ولا تحزن وقتلت نفسا فنجيناك من الغم وفتناك فتونا فلبثت سنين في أهل مدين ثم جئت على قدر يا موسى.
When your sister went and said, "Shall I direct you to the one who will take care of him?" So we brought you back to your mother, that her eye might be cooled and that she would not grieve. And you killed a man. Then we delivered you from the grief, and we tried you with a severe trying. Then you stayed for years among the people of Midian. Then you came here as ordained, O Musa. SubhanAllah. This ayah merits more discussion because there's so much to talk about. And I wanted to draw out some linguistic pieces, Imam Majid, with your help, just for the audience to understand. I asked our sponsor, Fawakih, which is an online educational platform for Quranic Arabic, and the instructors there are absolutely wonderful. And I asked if they would help do some research, some linguistic research on these ayahs. And so they've done that, and it's really, really helpful to our discussion. Specifically, the research that I wanted to cite here is there's sort of three types of sadness or distress. One is gham, which is what's used here to say that we delivered you from your grief. Then there's hem, which is not used here yet. And then there's huzn, which is the word used for what was referred to Musa's mother being relieved of. And essentially, you can think about it, according to this research from Fawakih, as huzn is sadness about something that's happened in the past. Gham is distress over something that's happening now but already happened in the recent past. And then hem is worry about something in the future. So basically, one is about the future, hem, I'm worried about what's going to happen in the future. Gham is I'm distressed or depressed about something that's already happened. And then huzn is a sadness about also something that's already happened. And another way to think about it is future, present, and past, where huzn is the past, gham is the present, and hem is the future. And so there's two of these types of grief, types of sadness, types of distress that are described here in this ayah, huzn and gham. Imam Majid, I'd love your reflections on the differences between these concepts and what we can learn from them.
Bismillah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. First of all, I would like to thank again also the people who did this research. In Gham been mentioned in the Quran in the story of Yunus, for example. فكشفنا به ما به من غم. When he said لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني كنت من الظالمين, because he was very stressed at that moment. For the gham is the moment of you feel overwhelmed. The stress is great stress of the circumstances that you were in at the time. And I agree 100%. Huzn is something also happened in the past. A person could be grieving something happened to them or done to them in the past. And many verses in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling Rasul sallam, لا تحزن. Rasul sallam used the word لا تحزن to Abu Bakr. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لقد نعلم أنه يحزنك الذي يقولون. We know that whatever they say about you make you sad. ولا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون. Because حزن and hazan is extreme level of grief and sadness. They call the whole year where the Khadija radiallahu anha and Abu Talib, when they passed, عام الحزن,
Right.
عام of grief. And ham is worries that Rasulullah said in the hadith, Allahumma inna a'udhu bika min al-hammi wal-hazan. Connect them together. Ham is excessive worries about circumstances that the person in, but worried about the future.
Right.
What's going to happen? And excessive worries, and when a person is worried a lot, it leads to depression. That's why Allahumma inna a'udhu bika min al-hammi wal-hazan. The excessive worries lead to hazan, which is depressions and sometimes extreme sadness. والعجز, then a person becomes helpless. والكسل, become less motivated. والجبن, then have excessive fear. البخل, then you hold back. You don't give anything. You hold back. And then the cause of them غلبة الدين وقهر الرجال. That excessive of the worried about financial debts and from oppressions. When a person go to trauma and being oppressed and so forth. For Musa alayhi salam and his mother went to all of this, went to this, the worries about their life, and they went to huzn and sadness. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the story of Musa alayhi salam, he introduced the reason that she's not becoming sad, كي تقر عينها ولا تحزن. My dear brothers and sisters who listen to us and Ustadha Dalia, Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when he was worried about something and not feeling good about something, he goes to Salah. قال وجعلت قرة عيني في الصلاة. Because Salah, it take your stress, reduce your stress. قال أرحنا بها يا بلال. For the comfort of his eyes, the joy, and by the way, this comfort of the eyes, if you look at it linguistically, قرة عين It is a state where you become pleased with something. When you see something or you experience something called قرة عين. Okay? That's why you say, ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين. Let me be in the presence of my spouse and my children have this قرة عين. Therefore here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to Musa that he brought him back كي تقر عينها. And this comfort of the eyes take away the sadness. ولا تحزن. In other words, her eyes was not at ease. Because he was out, away from her eyes. He was not at her sight. When he's away from her sight, she was not happy. But Allah brought him back so that the sadness goes away. And since you mentioned that, Usada, Dalia, each one of us have something we worried about in life. We worried about what's happening in the world. Worry is natural. Excessive worry lead to illness. How do you do with our worries? How do you do with gham? In the story of Yunus, and here the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala جَيْنَاكَ مِنَ الْغَمِّ is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala take us out of gham by asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by doing dhikr. We need three things to deal with our emotions, stress, and difficult times in our life. One, dhikr, remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says when he was in gham, قال لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني كنت من الظالمين. And here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when Musa alayhi salam, remember that Musa made a dua, Rabbi inni man amta ilayya, he said that, oh Allah, with what you have given me, فَلَنْ أَكُونَ ظَهِيرًا لِلْمُجْرِمِينَ. In the ayat of Surah Al-Qasas. Oh Allah, with the strength you have given me, don't let me be a support of those who are wrongdoers. Then Allah najjahum al-gham. The dua, at the same thing for Yunus alayhi salam. For dhikr and dua and salah, reduce our stress. The second, it is support system. In this story of Musa alayhi salam, his sister was there for him. His mother was there for him. The support he got from your family, from close circle, and so forth. And what Rasulullah get from in his journey, Abu Bakr was next to him. The Asma bint Abu Bakr was bringing the food and Hijrah. Ali was sleeping, the other one who's sleeping in his bed. The support system. The third is a person always think about next life, beyond this life. Allah compensate for everything that a person is suffering. I visited the best of our community, my community, recently, who are struggling with illness, terminal illness, with sickness. But everything in the hand of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The patient perseverance people show at the difficult time, it shows that they believe in next life. It shows that this is a manifestation of strong faith and iman. Therefore, the emotional stress is part of life. And that's why I'm so glad to start the Dalia we're doing this surah, because I can see myself in it too. There's so much difficult things in life sometimes, and you have all kind of sadness come to you, and you feel stress. But you read this story that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said he returned him back to his mother. He told him all the trouble he went in life. That this happened to you, this happened to you, this happened to you. Look what, how it came about, how the outcome was. Yeah, very comforting.
Thank you so much, Imam Majid. I think that telling people, helping all of us understand how to get past these natural human experiences is extremely important. There was a couple of other points about this word linguistically that I actually think are relevant here, which is that the word gham originally the root actually meant to be killed. Like it actually meant like a murder, or
Yes.
being killed.
Yes.
And it also has a second meaning of covering. So gham, like a day that's cloudy, is comes from the same root. It's like the clouds cover the sun.
Ghamama.
And
Yeah.
ghamama, right? Subhanallah, it really does feel that way when you're in a state of depression, that the good things are being covered. It's not that they don't exist. The sun is still there, the hope is still there, the goodness is still there, but the sadness is covering it, so you can't experience it, you can't feel it directly. And the idea of the word, originally in the Arabic of the Quraysh, meaning to kill or to
Yeah.
be,
To be
is
killed.
that it could be such intense distress and sadness and grief that it would almost kill somebody or kill them on the inside. And I just wanted to mention that the circumstances specifically of Musa's life, of taking a life, of actually killing someone else, have absolutely destroyed people. Accidentally taking a life has made someone go into such a deep depression, and sometimes they never recover. So this idea of, we saved you from this debilitating grief that you could have fallen into, I think is very important to understand. I think we read it quickly and we think, no, understand what that could have done, what that does do to people.
Mm.
And the way that he was relieved of it. And in Surah Al-Qasas, the asking for forgiveness, the way that he was able to let go of that weight and that shame through going to Allah and asking for forgiveness. And I think that carrying a burden of a sin around can be one of the heaviest things that you can carry, and it is absolutely at the core, at the root cause of so much depression. And the way to let that go is tawbah. It's
Mm.
as fast as your tawbah. And
Mm.
then to believe in Allah's mercy that He will forgive you. Because wrongdoing is how it is an oppression to ourselves, right? And it is how we weigh ourselves down. And we have to learn to let that go through the process of tawbah, not just through having no shame or having no guilt. No, it's not about having no moral compass. It's about incorporating the processes of renewal um, and rectification that we have in our faith.
This is so beautiful. And one of the things that just struck me, though, as you were elaborating on this, that Musa alayhi salam did not kill this man intentionally.
No.
Yeah. Now look, what the Imam al-Nasafi say in the tafsir. This gham, as you said, بلغة Quraysh means قتل, mean that
Mm-hmm.
taking life. But he said اغتم بسبب القتل خوفا من عقاب الله. He says he have this sadness and stress because he worried of Allah punishing him.
Yeah.
Then he asked Allah for forgiveness. Allah forgive him. How about people killing people every day intentionally and they
Right.
don't feel anything? They're numb.
Yeah.
They kill them in cold blood
Right.
and they don't feel any remorse.
They feel celebration.
A celebration. What kind of people are they? Like, there's the difference between a person really believing in God and a person does not. When a person believes in God, truly believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he will not sleep at night knowing that he have driven a car and by accident he killed
Right.
someone. I know some people who are not feeling well because a dog, they have to put the dog to sleep.
Right.
I have a family called me yesterday, beautiful family. The dog was sick and the vet said you have to put him to sleep. They said to me, is it a sin to put him to sleep? They asking about the dog.
Yeah.
How about people killing people in cold blood and they go to their home, their children, as if they have not done anything? What is very important here, we showed how Musa alayhi salam, his conscience is so awake
Yeah.
and he's so alert. Even by this killing someone mistakenly, he had this gham, had this sadness, had these worries, and it was weighed very heavy on him. And that shows just a contrast about what you see today and someone like Musa alayhi salam.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And we had mentioned, I think briefly last time we discussed the word fitna, right? Or fatannaka futuna, and how this word fitna, fatan, the root word of this phrase is the purification. It means the purification of a metal from its impurities.
Mm-hmm.
It's heating it up so that its impurities are fall away. And that's another piece of research that Fawake had provided. And so he's being told that he is being tested in so many different ways as a means to purify him. And I think starting to really internalize the idea that a fitna or a trial in our lives, it's also the way we are being purified, the way that we are being, as we mentioned, sometimes protected, and in this case as well, prepared. We're being prepared for our purpose. And this meaning is encapsulated in this ayah.
It's very interesting. Allah said, وَفَتَنَّاكَ فُتُونًا. وَفَتَنَّاكَ فُتُونًا. That means we give you all kind of tests in life. It's not only one test. The test that you've been separated from your mother, and then the fear that the anxiety she has and you had as a child. And then you have this test of the, accidentally killing this person, and the test of fearing that Fir'aun and other people in the city might do harm to you. And then you left your the city, fleeing the city, uh, being being drove out of your city. All, you become homeless. Just let's say that.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
was a refugee
a
basically.
refugee.
Yeah.
And then you find refuge in Median, but in the beginning, it doesn't have any home. It doesn't have a place to go
Right.
to.
He was exiled from his land.
Exiled.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very interesting that Isa alayhi salam went through the same thing, and Musa alayhi salam, and Rasul sallam, left his home. No prophet had it easy.
Right.
And Ibrahim alayhi salam had to leave also Iraq. Every prophet, like, people drove them out of their home. But the word fitna, that could be the test with prosperity or the test with calamity.
Yeah.
People don't realize it. There's a fitna of mal, of money, and there's a fitna of faqr, of poverty, and there's fitna of power, and there's a fitna of oppressions. A person being tested in all aspects of their life. Always the question, how do you with that test? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called wealth and prosperity test. وما الإنسان إذا ما ابتلاه ربه فأكرمه ونعمه فيقول ربي أكرمه وإذا ما ابتلاه فقدر عليه رزقه فيقول ربي أهانه. Allah called prosperity and ease and difficulty, both of them a form of test. فهي Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, الفتنة usually محنة, is محنة, and محنة means the extreme test that the person subhanahu wa ta'ala give a person. Allah said, وَنَبْلُونَكُمْ بِالْخَيْرِ وَالشَّرِّ فِتْنَةً. That's my point of saying that good and bad, it could be a test. And this is in Ayah Surah Al-Anbiya. وَلَنَبْلُونَكُمْ بِالْشَرِّ وَالْخَيْرِ فِتْنَةً. We test you with both difficulties and goods as a source of fitna, as purification to purify you.
Thank you so much. فَلَبِثْتَ سِنِينَ فِي أَهْلِ مَدْيَنَ. So you spent years among the people of Madian. ثُمَّ جِئْتَ عَلَى قَدَرٍ يَا مُوسَى. Then you came according to exact measure, O Musa. The idea of على قدر يا Musa, on this qadr, this measure, this divine measure, that where he is standing right now before Allah is exactly where he was supposed to be according to Allah's divine measure and planning. And all of these things that happened to him led up to this moment when he is realizing his purpose as a prophet of God. Imam Majid, can you talk a little bit about the concept of ala qadr when Allah is saying this to Musa?
Yeah, it's very amazing that Musa alayhi salam have to stay that long in Midian to be prepared for prophethood. And even I touched on this a little bit, that Allah sent him to a prophet, to Shu'aib, because he didn't have a father figure in his life.
Yeah.
According to what we read in the Quran so far. Then somebody older than him, because you can tell that Shu'aib was, alayhi salam was older than Musa alayhi salam. And Musa was young. And therefore, Shu'aib alayhi salam has experience of prophethood. And Shu'aib alayhi salam, at this time, is after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have saved him and his family and punished people of Midian for what they have done. And the experience Shu'aib alayhi salam had and passing to Musa alayhi salam prepared him for his prophethood. And that's why in Surah Al-Qasas that he stayed 10 years with him. 10 years. And 10 years to prepare someone, for a whole decade of training and observation and behavior, because Musa alayhi salam have this anger issues and so forth. Have a mentor. He become a mentee of Shu'aib alayhi salam. Now, Allah want him to do that. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, ثُمَّ جِئْتَ يعني على قدر يا موسى. After 10 years, I want you to have that gap of retreat. Took him away first of all from the place of oppressions, so he can rethink how we're going to tell those people. If you are in the midst of it, you might not be the right person to deliver the message. For he kind of separated him a little bit from the environment, so he can come back and make the change. Because sometimes when emotion is high and you are in that psyche of trauma, you will not be able to think straight.
Yeah.
So somebody from outside you go outside and come back. You leave and you come back. And that's what happened to Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He took them from Mecca and then brought him back to Mecca.
Right.
It's very important to have that kind of a moment or time to really to isolate yourself from the situation a little bit, so you can see it in perspective, different perspective. Now, this idea of Qadr is a very important idea or concept. ثم جئت على قدر يا موسى. Imam al-Nasafi, which is a person, one of the tafsir that I rely on sometimes, because it's bring the language and the spiritual components of the verses. He said this Qadr is maw'id. It's a particular time that Allah have chosen to Musa alayhi salam. And also it meant that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to prepare him to for the prophethood. That Qadr also. They said that some Mufassirin said that he spent 10 years. He completed his mission, and maybe said another 8 years. Some people said 18 years. And some people said that, no, the Musa alayhi salam finished the 10 years and then left. Whatever the number was, whether it was 10 or 18, would come to learn that he stayed that long with Shu'aib. ثم جئت على قدر يا موسى, meaning that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a particular measurement and laws that if the time does not come, it will never happen. The word Qadr is measurement. Different from Qada. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for example, said, نحن قدرنا بينكم الموت. we have made it part of the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everyone dies. But a particular person to die, هذا قضاء. Allah that في المسك التي قضى عليها الموت. Allah says in the Quran. نحن قدرنا بينكم الموت, that we made it as a measure, as the law that everyone dies. But the particular person to die, هذا قضاء الله. إن الله يتوفى الأنفس حين موتها والتي لم تمت في منامها يمسك التي قضى عليها الموت. He holds those souls that who have decreed death upon them. For this is Qadr. Now, there is a misunderstanding of Qadr as predestination. Qadr is a measurement that Allah put in this universe by which things function. And this laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is fixed, that a particular action has a reaction. That is Qadr. Particular action to take place at the time is Qadar.
So qada also means like a judgment?
Judgment and decree, you see, is decreeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala things to happen at the time. And Qadr, everything in the universe that goes with the Qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why there's two types of Qadr. Qadr kawni or Qadr shara'i. Universal Qadr and Sharia Qadr. Universal Qadr is that the laws that Allah put in this universe by which the universe function. Qadr shara'i, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered us to pray 5 times a day, to fast a month of Ramadan. هذا قدر شرعي. Okay? It's very interesting that when Umar radiallahu anhu about to enter a city, and there was a plague or a contagious disease, there's a pandemic, and then one of the Sahabas with him, Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah, and Umar radiallahu anhu was told about the sickness in the city. And Umar radiallahu decided not to enter the city. Abu Ubaidah said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, أتفر من قدر الله? Are you running from the Qadr of Allah? Let us enter the city. قال لو قالها غيرك, I wish somebody other than you have told me this. أفر من قدر الله إلى قدر الله. Said, I'm running from the Qadr of Allah to the Qadr of Allah. Not to enter this Qadr, to enter this Qadr. And I'm using this Qadr not to enter. Another story amazing of Umar, the standing of the Qadr. A man committed a crime. And Umar wanted to punish him. And he said, don't punish me. I did it with the Qadr of Allah. He said, yeah, absolutely. But we're going to punish you with the Qadr of Allah. That Qadr too. That means there's a consequence of action. You did the action because how did you do with the Qadr of Allah? Allah gave him hands and feet and to walk with and hand to touch with. He committed with those limbs that Allah have given him. That's Qadr of Allah. And to punish him is a Qadr of Allah. So there's a misunderstanding of the word Qadr in the Muslim community sometimes. Qadr is not to throw your hand off to say, I'm not going to do anything. No. You have to use Qadr for Qadr. To respond to the Qadr with Qadr, always. فَجِئْتَ عَلَى قَدْرٍ يَا مُوسَى, subhanallah, that you will not have come before that time. It has to be like you and I want to throw to Yusuf, alayhi salam. Okay, he has to be thrown into the well, has to be, sold into slavery, and then become in charge of Egypt, for him to have his dream to be fulfilled. Right. You remember he said, إِنَّ رَبِّي لَطِيفٌ لِمَا يَشَاءُ. My Lord has a way, mysterious way of have things to happen to his will. The same thing here. جِئْتَ عَلَى قَدْرٍ يَا مُوسَى.
SubhanAllah. So one thing I just wanted to point out from something you said earlier is every prophet seems to have had some experience of exile where they had to leave their land. Yusuf is another example, right? He had to leave his land. Ibrahim alayhi salam, Musa alayhi salam, Rasulullah alayhi salam, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, Isa alayhi salam. All of them had this experience of exile. And I think it's very interesting. There's been much written about the experience of exile and how even modern reformers of society all have had some experience of exile where they've left their land, gone somewhere else, looked at it from a different perspective, from a distance, and then come back to reform it, come back to do something different. And I think we learn from that. It's not that we have to exile ourselves, but the idea of looking at things from a different angle, from a distance, from a different perspective, it's necessary to gain clarity, the clarity needed to reform it. So it's subhanAllah, to reform a society, you have to be of that society. You have to understand the society intimately, but not so immersed in it that you can't see it from a distance. You also need distance. You need intimacy and you need distance in order to have the ability to reform a community.
This is so beautiful. I just want to touch on what you just said. Look, even before the Hijrah, Rasulullah ﷺ was going to Ghar Hira. So you have
Beautiful.
different perspectives. Just like that's why I say you don't have to leave the land, but you do have some khalwa to think about.
Retreat.
A retreat of reflections. And now even corporate America does that. They take people, and a non-profit, and they take people somewhere away from their workplace to think back, to say, are we doing it correctly? Like a break.
To reflect from a different, from a distance.
That's why it's called strategic planning and those kind of things.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I wanted to just ask this question. I was reflecting on the fact that Allah, He starts out by saying, and I've gifted you before. So you want your brother as a helper, I'll give that to you. And by the way, I've been giving you gifts all along. And then He tells him his life back to him. These are all things Musa is aware of. He knows these things happened. For the most part, they're all things he directly experienced and knew happened. But yet, still, Allah is telling him his story back to him. And I thought this was so interesting in preparing him to go and face Fir'aun, which is so difficult, something he was really struggling with. Why reflect back to him his life story? What was the purpose of that? It's not new information, but it's a reframing of a life experience. It's a retelling of his life story, a new narrative, a new meaning.
This is very beautiful what you just said. That's the importance of have a diary that to reflect on your past, where you used to be, where you are now, what happened to you 10 years ago, what happened 15 years ago, where you used to be, where you are now, to measure progress and also to measure lesson to be learned. What lesson to be learned? And those who don't reflect in history, they never get to improve their future, because you need to have that reflections. And it's very interesting that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told Rasulullah also back his story. لما يجدك يتيما فآوى وجدك ضالا فهدى وجدك عائلا فأغنى, in Surah Al-Duha, that then he found you an orphan and gave you a shelter, find you in need, made you self-sufficient, find you wandering, and he give you guidance. We need to ask ourselves, where were you used to, like 5 years ago, where a person was in life and so forth, so 10 years ago. Things have changed. I ask people sometimes, even to look to your children, to say, my child 10 years ago, 5 years ago used to be this, and now he's like, to appreciate, the effort they made, in life. And the other things that a person can use, by the way, is their birthday. Every year reflect, how far you want in life, and what things that you want to change, and what things you want to celebrate. Or people marriage anniversary. There's things that could be a reason for us to reflect. Every Eid, for example, every New Year, a person might think about what have happened this past year, and what's work anniversary. You've been working for a place for 20 years, 25 years. What's been learned all of this time, and it is beautiful that what you're just saying, that telling a person what happened in their life, make them reflect. I took a class on theater some time ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and and uh, and there's something called playback theater, where you tell a story and there's actors in front of you and they will act what you told them. You have a story from your past, an incident happened in your life, and they will play it in front of you. When they play it in front of you, it's very interesting. It becomes more real. You see it now in front of you, and it's very powerful. Can I tell you a joke? A man in Sudan, he doesn't know how to read or to write, and therefore he went to write. He'd been wronged and went to complain to the court, but he has to have somebody to write the complaint for him. For he asked somebody, and this is a real story. He asked him to write a complaint, and he told him what happened to him. After he finished, he asked the man who wrote the complaint, were writing the complaint for him, to read it back to him.
Okay.
And the man read the complaint. What the man dictated to him, he read it back to him. And the man started crying. He said, "Why are you crying?" He said, "I didn't realize that I was that wronged,
Yeah.
that much wronged." Because he realized now hearing it back, it brought that understanding, how deep. Although he the one who dictated the letter, but he
Right.
realized now how much he was wronged by hearing from somebody else, because he told him his story back. Well, it is healing, by the way.
Yeah.
It's healing that to hear what you went through and how far you become and so forth.
It's
Even in
very
therapy.
validating,
In
isn't it?
therapy, why they tell you to tell the story in therapy? To talk about what happened to you. Because part of the healing. People
Yeah.
said therapy digging. Sometimes you dig in the dirt and person you creating trauma. No, part of the therapy is to try to help a person to deal with their past,
Yeah.
to sort it out. So it is very beautiful that I really like what you did here. It reminded me of why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told Musa the whole story. Tell him the story back so he can hear it. Like
So he can hear
what?
it.
Yeah,
He now sees, he feels seen by Allah,
yeah.
that it was all under Allah's watchful, loving eye. It wasn't just a series of random tragedies, and he's a product of tragedy. No, he's a product of training,
Mm,
Allah's training for a very lofty purpose. And we all are. We all are. Our lives are under the watchful, loving gaze of Allah, and everything that's happening is by His decree, and we are exactly where we are meant to be. And this idea of Qadr, it couldn't have been one day earlier, one day later. It had to be that day. I wanted to share with you, Imam Majid, this book by David Eagleman, and his book is called Incognito: The Secret Lives of the Brain.
mm,
And he says in this book, instead of reality being passively recorded by the brain, it is actively constructed by it.
mm.
So this construction is our sense-making ability. We make sense, we make meaning out of the events of our lives, and we have a choice how to do that.
Wow.
Viktor Frankl, this is a very famous book, in his book Man's Search for Meaning, he wrote, those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how.
That is beautiful. Because I always say I say it to myself and to others, life is a matter of interpretation of events.
Yes.
How you interpret the events. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used that in the Quran, many verses. They said, how come we lost in Uhud? قال هو من عند أنفسكم. I want you to reflect on what did you do.
Mm.
The fact that you have the idea of muhasaba, why is this and that, but also reframing. يعني الله
Yes.
سبحانه وتعالى said to the Prophet ﷺ, إنهم لا يكذبونك. They are not rejecting you. ولكن الظالمين بآيات الله يجحدون. But those who are wrongdoers and people who commit injustice, they are rejecting my ayat. It's not about you, it's about me. That is cognitive therapy, the interpretation of events.
Right.
And that's why sometimes an event happened to, the same event happened to two people, and one of them was able to cope, the other person is not. It's how person interpret the event and what belief system they have that make them to cope with the event. One of the Sahaba, for example, he lost his finger, and he saw his finger in the ground. He said, "See you in Jannah. See you later." Like, that's interpretation of events. Like, I didn't lose you completely. Temporarily lost you, but I can have you back. Because there's no plastic surgery at the time. Therefore, it is very important how do you interpret the event. Like, look at the whole ayah in Surah Al-Baqarah. This is interpretation of event. وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِنَ الْخَوْفِ. We test you with fear. وَالْجُوعِ, hunger. وَنَقْصٍ مِنَ الْأَمْوَالِ, diminution of wealth. وَالْأَنفُسِ, loss of life. Crops with marat. وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. Give glad tidings to those who are patient, have perseverance. الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ, when being tested by calamity befall them, قالوا إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. That interpretation. We belong to Allah. Everything we had is from Allah. It belongs to Allah. وإنا إليه, ourselves, راجعون. We'll go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Therefore, how the interpret the event is very crucial.
Yes.
As a Muslim. Like, if somebody say negative things about you, or say, okay, happened to Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, then it bring comfort to you. That people call Rasul names, and they call him this and that. Not only that, it happened, Muslims call each other names before, unfortunately, that Imam Ali was cursed in the member. Therefore, when you read that, the stories make you rethink life. Okay? A woman said to Rasulullah, Ya Rasulullah, tell me what my son is. If he's in paradise, I'll become patient. If he's somewhere else, I will cry until my eyes dry. And Rasulullah said, have you lost your mind? Your son is not only in paradise, but he have went to the peak of paradise. Asaba alaha. She said, Ya Rasulullah, then asbir. Interpretation of event. How do you interpret event in life make you cope with life?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the concept of post-traumatic growth, and trauma doesn't always cause growth, of course. But when psychologists study post-traumatic growth, when people grow out of trauma, it's because they've reframed it. They've told a different narrative, and they've made a story about it that makes them grow through it, that makes them a better person through it. And what this conversation is doing is inducing a very quickly post-traumatic growth. Going from, this is the best therapy, the best therapist, Musa is getting it right from Allah, said this is what was happening this whole time. You were being prepared, you were being loved, you were being protected, you were being purified, and it was all under my loving eye, and I made you for me.
Yeah, subhanallah. Yeah. It's one of the things that I learned from my father, may Allah bless his soul. He was, sometimes he's in pain, but he doesn't tell. He does not tell me. And then the doctor says, your father has high fever. Did not complain to you? I said, he did not. Then one day I asked him, I said, what make you cope with all of this? His tremendous perseverance and patience. He said, my uns, my comfort, I know that every pain I had, it's been compensated for, because I'm dealing with the most merciful Lord. He does not let me go in pain without compensating me. And therefore, I'm dealing tijara with Allah. I'm making deal with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm trading the pain of the dunya for akhirah. It's just like unbelievable that how much he sees life, and he used to remind me that when the doctor came to put the IV on him and he smiled, he said, it's been counted. The pain has been counted. Like really, how you interpret the events taught me a lot, and that's why he said to me, don't make dua against another Muslim who wronged you. I said, why? He said, leave it with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Will be better for you to get the reward in akhirah than seeing somebody being punished in dunya. He said, if you leave it, because you see them make a dua, Allah punish them in dunya, you become happy. But if you be more happier, ومن عفا وأصلح فأجره على الله. You don't bring other Muslim in misery. Maybe you make a dua against them, and then they have a family, they have a wife, they have children. What they don't let other people suffer because of you. He told me that. I just said, like, really, this is the next level of thinking. When afa wa aslah fajruhu ala Allah. Whoever made afu and islah, and leave it with Allah. That Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal said that. His son said to him, why don't you make a dua? Why are you not, against those people who wronged you? He said, Ya bunay, I heard that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Rasulullah said Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will have people to stand up in the judgment, those who left their reward with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Therefore, interpretation of events, trust me, without iman, without faith, you'll not be able to cope with this life. This life is full of tests and surprises and so forth and so on. Whether it's good or bad, all of them are tests. But interpretation, like if a person get promotion in their job, they have to look at it as Allah testing me, ليبلوني أشكر أم أكفر. Whether I'm going to be grateful more to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or I'm going to be heedless. Then therefore the person starts praising Allah, thanking Allah, and recognizing the name that Allah has given them. And therefore I look at TV and I see children are starving in Gaza and other, and you make dua, but also you make the effort to try to bring ease to them yourself within your power here. But you have to know that Allah compensates. No one suffers with no compensation.
Without the spiritual dimension of our worldly life, it would be impossible to
Absolutely
cope with it. Absolutely. I referred to this ayah. The next ayah is وَاصْطَنَعْتُكَ لِنَفْسِي. I have crafted you, or I have chosen you for myself. Summarizing really everything that's just been said. All of these events was Allah forming him for his mission. And the idea of for myself, you belong to Allah. You are his, and his plan for you is out of his divine mercy.
Imam Nasafi قال لتتصرف على إرادتي ومحبتي, so that you might act upon my will and my love for you. My love for you. اصطنعتك لنفسي. It's just so beautiful. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling him that I prepare you all of this time, like he prepared Yusuf alayhi salam. He prepared Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Very interesting, Rasul sallam was an orphan by design.
Right.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, لم يجدك يتيما فآوى. Then he said, أما اليتيم فلا تقهر. Therefore, you're orphan so that you can know what the vulnerable people look like, to experience that. Therefore, don't ever forget that you are an orphan and be there with the orphan always. The same thing with Musa alayhi salam. It didn't occur to you, Dalia, that every prophet, like, they were born like in this kind of difficulty. Like, it was not like, there's something called royal children. Like people were born in royalty, and therefore they expect them to be a prince and princess and king and so forth. Every prophet was born in difficulty. Either the mother is absent, the father is absent, the hardship around them and so forth. They're being prepared to be with the most vulnerable people in society. They're being prepared to stand for people in oppressed. Like, really, it's very interesting. With the exception of Sulaiman alayhi salam.
I was going to say the exception of the king.
Exception Sulaiman and Dawood, because Allah gives an example of a person was born in royalty, but he did the right things with it. Right. But other than Sulaiman alayhi salam and Dawood alayhi salam, every other prophet, like Yusuf alayhi salam, separation from his family and living in different land. Ibrahim alayhi salam has difficulty. Nuh alayhi salam. Every prophet almost,
Yeah.
Like if one example of a prophet that in loyalty that he did the right thing is the power that Allah has given him. It's interesting.
Well, this
فاصطنعت
kind of
بنفسي.
grief, this kind of hardship, it increases compassion. Just
Yeah.
psychologically, when people go through these kinds of things where they are tested, where they grieve loss, this is the concept of post-traumatic growth is it increases our compassion. And subhanallah, Rasulullah alayhi salam, who's described as a mercy to all the worlds, how much grief did he have to face in his life to expand his heart so much that he would be described as rahmat lil alamin, that he's a mercy to all the worlds, to everything. So subhanallah, all the prophets, with just a few exceptions, went through so much calamity to prepare them to be with the people, to prepare them for their mission. So we'll pick up from where we ended today with the mission that he has to now go face Firaun next time, inshallah. Thank you so much, Imam Majid. We hope you enjoyed this conversation. And if you did, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Share this episode with others who may be interested in the meaning of the Quran. Also, we love hearing from our listeners. Tell us your reflections at Quran.conversations, our Instagram page. We read every single one. Finally, we hope this podcast encourages your own reflective journey with the Quran. This week's reflection prompt is: thinking of a challenging experience in your life, ask yourself, what challenged me the most during this experience? What did I learn from it about myself? What assumptions did I have going into it, and were they validated or challenged? How did this experience impact my values and beliefs? And what would I do differently if faced with a similar situation? Until next time, keep reflecting on the Quran. Assalamu alaikum.